Guys, this film is retarded. This film is garbage. It is a piece of shit film. I do not recommend it to anybody. I will spoil the shit out of this movie. It is complete and utter trash. I will not recommend it at all. There is zero emotion, zero depth, and I honestly just couldn't wait for the movie to end. A good movie is going to immerse you, and a bad movie is going to remind you that you're watching a movie. Gladiator 2 is constantly reminding you that you are watching a film. I'm going to give you guys my review of Gladiator 2. I finally watched the film. I told myself that I was going to watch this movie, and I did. And I decided that I would give a review for you guys. Gladiator 2, just to give you guys the short answer, Gladiator 2 is basically a skeleton. It's a rotting corpse of the first film. And that actually, you know what? No. It can't even be a rotting corpse of the first film because Gladiator, let's be real, Gladiator was one of the greatest films ever made, arguably the greatest film ever made. Depends on your opinion. I'm more of a Braveheart guy. I think Braveheart is better than Gladiator. But again, that's my preference. A lot of people think that Gladiator is the best, is the greatest film ever. But Gladiator 2, I hate to call it Gladiator 2 because I hate the idea that it's actually in the same universe as Gladiator. But Gladiator 2 is garbage. It is. It is a garbage-ass movie. There's just numerous things I have to say about Gladiator 2. The overemphasis on CGI. There is so much bloody CGI in Gladiator 2. It's ridiculous. So much CGI right from the beginning of the movie. And you know that this film was really just made to be a cash grab because it's so rushed. Everything about this film is rushed. There's no time that's taken to allow a familiarization to be built between the audience and the characters, the audience and the people in this movie. There is a lot of rushing. There is a lot of just quickening everything. In Gladiator, you have Maximus Aurelius. He's the general. He's this Roman general, very well connected, very prestigious. He has a very good reputation of being an excellent and efficient and commanding military leader. We understand that he longs to be with his wife. So Gladiator begins with this epic battle scene in which the Romans are fighting these German barbarians, these Germanic barbarians, and there is this amazing battle scene that happens in Gladiator, where you have the Roman artillery and you have the archers and you have the dogs, and it's just so organized and it really immerses you. And that's a key word when you're reviewing films. That's a key word to use when you're reviewing films and when you're determining if a film is good or if a film is garbage. The word is immersion. How much does a film immerse you into the story? How much does the film transport you and move you into the story? And I read an article. It was a review of Gladiator 2. It was published, I want to say, by Forbes magazine. The author of that article really, he put it in a way that just completely and succinctly summarizes exactly the difference between a good movie and a bad movie. More or less, here's what the guy said. A good movie immerses you into the story. A good movie transports you into a different world. A bad movie constantly reminds you that you're watching a movie. And that's really what you're getting with Gladiator 2. You're not getting any immersion, whereas in the first movie, the whole film was immersive. Right from the beginning, you're right there with the Roman military, you're seeing this world, and you're just being taken into, psychologically, emotionally, you're being taken into the story, and you're seeing these Roman soldiers, you're seeing how organized they are, how efficient they are in battle. They have all this artillery, catapults, they have all these archers, they have dogs, and they are fighting these barbarians, and the beginning of the Gladiator movie is so epic. Maximus is there and he sees a bird and the bird flies away, and he watches the bird as it flies away, and you have this very atmospheric music playing in the background, and the color of Gladiator is so fitting for the story. It's gritty, it's gray, it's gloomy, it's dreary, and it just fits the mood so well. It really tells you are not in a good place. You are in a depressing, dreary battlefield somewhere in northern or central Europe. Then Maximus is speaking with Quintus, and they're talking about this messenger that they sent out, and Maximus asks Quintus, for how long has the messenger been gone? And Quintus says something like, well, he's been gone for 2 hours or something like that. Then all of a sudden you see this horse, and the horse is riding, or the horse is moving this headless man. There's a headless body on top of the horse as the horse is galloping towards the soldiers, and they just see this corpse with no head, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, is this a horror movie? It just immediately takes you right into this very, very scary and unstable situation. And then all of a sudden you see this barbarian German, and he's dressed up in wolves or bear's fur, and he's got this big ass hammer. He's got Thor's hammer in his hands, and he has the head of this Roman, and he throws the head, he swings this decapitated head towards the Roman army, and he screams something in German. You actually are never told in the film what he says. There's no subtitles, and I think the reason why Ridley Scott did not want subtitles was because he really wanted you to be immersed into the story. I think it's the same reason why Steven Spielberg didn't put any subtitles in Saving Private Ryan. So when you hear people speaking German or you hear people speaking French, you have no idea what these people are saying, at least not until Upham does some translation work at times. But there's no subtitles, because when you read subtitles, then you're reminded that you're watching a movie. But when you don't know what's happening, you don't know what's being said, and your mind is in this tense situation, that makes it more immersive. This German guy, he throws this head, he tosses this head at the Romans, and then Maximus says, they say no. And then Maximus says, would you, Quintus? Would I? I mean, there's just so much beautiful writing. There's so much emotive writing and such memorable lines in Gladiator. There's lines that I still remember in Gladiator. So, for example, there's a scene after the battle with the Germans in which Maximus tells Commodus, I wish to go home and see my wife and child. And Commodus says, home. Don't get too comfortable. And right there, it shows this callousness of the Roman government, in a sense, saying, we don't give a damn about you wanting to go see your family. We want to use you as a tool. But the way that Commodus says it, or the way that Joaquin Phoenix, I should say, says it, really, really bespeaks this callousness that he has towards really anybody. He eventually murders his own father. And so Maximus is betrayed by his own government. He knows that they want to kill his wife and son. So he's rushing to his house, and there is this sense of emergency. There is this sense of desperation. There is this sense that, oh my God, this guy better get to his house because they're going to murder his wife and son. And then he goes to the house and he sees the whole territory. The whole property is scorched. The wife is dead. The son is dead. There's pretending to be sad, and then there's being sad. And Russell Crowe shows actual sadness in this scene. And he grabs his wife's feet and he smothers his wife's feet on his face. And there's snot coming out of his nose, and there's tears. I mean, there's this real emotion being expressed. And so that emotion really hits the audience. Like, this man just lost his wife and son. They murdered his wife and son after he fought for the empire. Think about how painful this betrayal is. You have put your whole life into this empire. You fought for this empire. You risked your life for this empire. You have traveled all the way to Germania from the Mediterranean, from your beautiful Mediterranean farm, to sacrifice for this empire, to fight for this empire. And what does the empire do to you? It murders your wife and son. And so the heartbreak and the betrayal and the emotional and psychological torment that comes with all that, and you feel it, and the audience feels the weight of Maximus's pain and suffering. Whereas in Gladiator 2, you begin the story with this guy. You have no idea. You don't know anything about him. You just see that he's just living in this farm, and then all of a sudden the Romans come, and his wife is this badass archer. Whereas in Gladiator, real Gladiator, not this bullshit, Maximus has the masculine role of soldier. His wife has the feminine role of wife and caretaker. And so there you have these traditional roles there. And so you feel sorry for the wife because she was completely helpless. She was just a woman who couldn't defend herself. And she has this child that she's taking care of. She has her son that she's taking care of. And the son is completely helpless. And so you really, really feel bad. Whereas in Gladiator 2, you have this guy whose wife is this badass archer, and she dies in battle. And you don't really feel sorry for her at all because you're thinking she's a soldier. She's a soldier archer in this battle, and she got killed in battle. She wasn't a defenseless woman protecting her son. So the emotional weight of her dying is not there for the audience. And then you have zero emotional connection between the main character and the audience. This is all really shitty directing. And I think really what happened was Ridley Scott and all the other people in charge, they said, listen, let's just make this movie. Who cares about a story? Who cares about emotional connections? Who cares about immersion? Who cares about building familiarity between the audience and the characters? Who cares about any of this stuff? Let's just rush this movie. We'll stick Denzel Washington in the movie because everybody loves Denzel, and we're just going to make a bunch of money. And that's what it was. That's exactly what it was. And they made a bunch of money. They made hundreds of millions of dollars. It was a giant cash grab, and that was it. Going back to this movie, you could see the mediocre and the rushed directing throughout this entire movie. The actors are not even acting. What does it mean to act? Does it really mean to pretend? No. What it means to act is to express your true self in front of a camera. It's actually to help to tell a story through expressing your true self and your true emotions. So if you're playing a villain, you got to show your villainous side. If you're playing a hero, you have to show your true courageous and heroic side. It's about tapping into who you are and then showing that to the audience and building that emotional connection. Without that, you are not acting. You're just pretending, and you're just going with the flow, and you're just going with the movement. And there is literally throughout this entire movie, there is zero emotional familiarity between the characters and the audience. Literally nothing. There is zero psychological connection. There's zero attempt to even make a psychological connection between the characters and the audience. It's just there's nothing there. So I'll give you guys an example, right? And this all is done through the expression of the actors. And I'll parallel Gladiator with Gladiator 2. It pains me to even put those movies in the same universe, but that's how it's presented to us. So in Gladiator, there is a scene where he is about to fight his first match in the arena, but he's not in the Colosseum. He's in North Africa somewhere. This is in Gladiator with Russell Crowe. And Russell Crowe and all these guys are sitting in this room, and they are waiting for the gates to open so that they can go into this arena and fight for their lives. And it is a terrifying scene. You could literally feel the terror through the screen. You can feel it. It's so fucking well done. It's unbelievable, this scene. It's one of the greatest scenes in the movie, where you see Maximus sitting there on this bench, all these people sitting there, and Maximus is chained with this African dude named Juba, and he's some Numidian hunter. I mean, the guy was epic. So Maximus and Juba are chained together. They're sitting on this bench, and they're waiting for the gates to open up so that they can fight to the death. That's what they're being forced to do. And as they're waiting, the tension is building up, and you can literally feel the tension. Now, how is the tension built? The tension is built by various things that are seen and various sounds. So you hear the roaring of the crowd, and you can imagine yourself in that room, in that hallway, hearing this roaring. And then there's a man in front of the gate, and he is constantly swinging this mace. And you can hear the swing of the mace, and as the mace moves, it for just a moment will block the light that is seeping through the cracks, the gaps on the gates, on the doors. And just watching that scene, it's like a horror movie. It horrifies you. And you think about it, these guys have been forced into this. They didn't want to be here. They don't want to be there. And now they're all chained into pairs, and they're just hearing the swinging of this mace, the roaring of the crowd, and they're just waiting for that moment when these gates are going to open. And they know at any moment those gates are going to open and there's going to be blood. And it's horrifying. And that scene grips the audience, and it creates this immense tension that's just harrowing. It's a harrowing scene. There is literally none of that in Gladiator 2. There's zero tension. There is zero emotion. There's zero emotional buildup. There's zero character, character development. There's zero familiarization that's built between the audience and the characters. It just doesn't exist. The entire film is flat. This entire movie is flaccid. It is so anticlimactic. It's insane how anticlimactic this movie is. When Maximus's wife and son are murdered in Gladiator, that the gravity and the weight of the pain that results from that is felt throughout the entire movie. Maximus never forgets his wife and son. He remembers them all the way until the end, until he remembers them into death. And when Maximus dies in the end of the film, he still remembers his wife and son. And then Juba, oh my God, Juba has that beautiful scene where he takes the two little images, one of Maximus's wife and one of Maximus's son, and he buries them in the sand of the Colosseum. And he says, "I will see you soon, but not yet. Not yet." And Juba is this African dude, and he here's another thing. The African characters in Gladiator, as opposed to Gladiator 2. In Gladiator, the African characters actually look African. Could you imagine that? They actually took the time to find actors that actually look like they're from sub-Saharan Africa. And you have Juba, who was one of the main characters in the film, and he is awesome. He is such a great supporting character. He's great. He really is, and he doesn't die. This is a movie where the black guy doesn't die. And there's other Africans in Gladiator, other than Juba. They're not main characters, but they are there, and they look like they're from Nigeria. They look like they're from Sudan. They look like African warriors from antiquity, and you just see Juba, and you say to yourself, "Yeah, that guy. I could totally see an African dude looking like that in the ancient Roman Empire, being a gladiator. Totally see it." In Gladiator 2, you have all these African characters, but they don't look African. They look African American. In Gladiator, you have Juba, like that dude. As soon as you see him, African. In Gladiator 2, it's just you got some dude from Oakland, and he worked out at Gold's Gym. And the director said, "Hey, you want to be in a movie?" "Yeah, sure, why not? What am I going to do?" "Yeah, you're going to be a gladiator." "Okay, cool." They don't even try to convince you that these people are African. You just look at him and you know that guy plays football. That guy played football in high school. Let's be real. Come on, stop this bullshit. I want to be immersed. You're going to make a film about the ancient Roman Empire. I want to be immersed into the ancient Roman Empire. I want to see the Romans fighting the Germans. I want to see the arena. I want to see the gladiatorial matches. But I want to feel the terror that would come with all that. And if there's Numidians in the Colosseum, African warriors, I want to see people that I know look like what an African warrior would have looked like back in the day, back in far antiquity. But there is none of this in Gladiator 2. The entire film falls flat, literally the whole movie. And as the journalist so well put it, a good movie is going to immerse you, and a bad movie is going to remind you that you're watching a movie. When directors are doing films, they will make actors do multiple takes of a scene until they get the scene perfectly done. That's if you want to do a masterpiece. It is difficult to just, willy-nilly, cold turkey, express emotion in front of a camera. It's not easy. So, for example, Robert the Bruce in Braveheart is played by Angus McFadden. And Angus McFadden does a wonderful performance in Braveheart, in which he is extremely emotional. He is guilt-ridden, and there's a scene where he yells at his father, and he tells his father, because they literally just betrayed William Wallace. Robert the Bruce tells his father, "I will never be on the wrong side again." And he has this beautiful scene where he says, "When men fight for William Wallace, they do it for something that I've never had, and I took it from him, and I saw it in his face in the battlefield, and it's tearing me apart." And his father says, "All men betray. All those hearts. I know William's heart." And this tears, dude, just filling up his eyes. And it's a masterful scene. And it just really grips your heart and your soul and your mind. And it immerses you into the story. And it builds this emotional connection with the characters. To do a scene like that, I think takes a lot of, at least, it takes multiple takes, I would say. And you just got to do the takes. Okay, let's do it again. And then boom. You got magic that happens, and the actor feels emotional. His mind is in the right place. Boom, he executes the role perfectly, and he does it. With Gladiator 2, I feel like the actors aren't even comfortable. You will get that sense when watching Gladiator 2. The actors are acting like they're actors. That's what the actors are doing. They're acting like they're pretending. They're doing the lines, they're saying the lines, but they're not feeling the lines. Whereas Angus McFadden playing Robert the Bruce, he's not only saying the lines, he's feeling the lines. He's feeling the lines. "I will never be on the wrong side again. I know William's heart." He's saying it with feeling and emotion and passion. And in Gladiator 2, there is literally none of that. There is zero of that. There is just people going with the motions, saying the lines, and going to the next scene. And you could totally feel it. The whole movie feels fake. It feels absolutely fake. I'll give you an example. In Gladiator, the real Gladiator with Russell Crowe, when Russell Crowe is introduced to the reality that he is now going to be a gladiator, you have a man named Proximo. Proximo is basically a pimp. he buys the gladiators and he has them fight in the arena, and he sells the gladiators, or he gets the gladiators and then he sells them, and he gets all of his new gladiators that he's gonna sell, and one of them is Maximus Aurelius. And he tells these men, he says, I'm gonna own you, and I'm gonna be someone who's going to parent you since the time, and he just says this very vulgar thing, he says, like, since the time that bitch of a mother of yours brought you screaming into this world. But the way that he executes the line is, it's brutal, it's harsh, it's vulgar, but it immediately hits you with the reality that you are not in a nice place. And then he says, gladiators, I salute you. But the way he says the lines is so... There's so much depth in his words, the way that he says them. He feels the lines. And then there's a scene where these guys are about to go fight in the arena, and Proximo is there. And he says, he has a sword in his hand, and he says something like, really, we're all dead men. And he stabs the sword onto the table. But the way that the scene is done, it's just so artistic. And again, it's immersive. And then there's that scene where Maximus is about to enter the arena, and he tells Proximo, Marcus Aurelius had a dream that was Rome. This is not it. This is not it. And then Proximo says, we are but shadows and dust, Maximus. Shadows and dust. And it's just such a magical scene. I can tell you this right now, I can assure you this, there is none of that in Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2 has some big scenes. It has some fight scenes, but there is no passion in this movie at all. It is a skeleton. There's nothing in it. This is how the actors in Gladiator 2 act. Yes, you are here to fight for the glory of Rome. It's like I'm watching one of those cheap TBN movies. There's a scene where the main character is now being faced with the reality that he's going to be a gladiator. But they take it from the scene in Gladiator where Maximus is there, Proximo is there, and he said, I'm going to be the one basically ruling you. Well, they try to do a scene parallel to that in Gladiator 2, and they have the main character there, and then some fat Italian dude walks up to him and says, hi, yeah, you're in the arena where gladiators are made. I mean, that level of dullness. It's so jejune, and it's so bereft of any emotion. It's completely vacuous of any emotion. It's just, the film is not really watchable. The film is exhausting. So when you watch Gladiator, you don't want the movie to end. The film is so epic and immersive. You hate the fact that the film ends. You want it to keep going. It's so damn good. You want to know what happens after. You want to know what happens to Juba. Did Juba go back to Africa? Did he become a hunter again? What did Juba do with his freedom? And I think if you wanted to do a sequel of Gladiator, I think a great idea would be to do a film about Juba. And don't make it shitty with CGI. Make a film where you have Juba and he goes back to Africa, and then a tribe comes to annihilate his tribe, and he's in the middle of tribal warfare. I mean, that would be fascinating, like a Blood Diamond movie, but an ancient version of Blood Diamond. That would be epic. But you don't have that in Gladiator 2. And Gladiator 2 is constantly reminding you that you are watching a film. Lucia is in this movie, and they got the same actress to play her, and she doesn't even look like she's dressed up for the ancient Roman Empire. She looks like she just got out of the mall. I'm not exaggerating. She looks like she just got out of Nordstrom, whatever it's called, Nordstrom, the Nordstrom store, or J.C. Penney, or one of those stores, and she's dressed up with these big earrings, big shiny earrings. And did she got back from Banana Republic or something? Like, I don't get the feeling that she's in the Roman Empire here. I'm getting the feeling that she's doing a scene for Home Alone 2, and she's looking for the kid. It's just such a rushed film. The whole movie is rushed. And again, you have these actors who do the roles. They're not doing the roles, but they do the scenes, right? And they're doing the lines, but they're just, for the glory of Rome. There was a dream that was Rome, and that dream is a Rome where people have freedom. Remember the film Samurai Cop and how bland the actors were when they said their lines? Okay, Samurai Cop is so bad that it's good. It's so bad that it's a comedy. The actors in this movie sound almost like the people in Samurai Cop. They're just doing the lines, and they're just constantly reminding you that you're watching a film, and it's all pretend. And I don't want that. I want to watch a film to escape. I want to be immersed into a different world. And you don't see that in Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2 has a grotesque reliance on CGI, where they have monkeys and baboons walking around, and it's just it's all just fake. I mean, they don't even try to make good CGI. It's just shitty garbage CGI, and it's just so dumb. Like monkey baboons, what? Why couldn't you get a real animal that you could tame, somewhat tame, like in Gladiator, where they had a real tiger or real tigers? It was so well done. But in Gladiator 2, it's just everything CGI. There's no tigers, there's no lions. It's all just CGI stuff. Even the first battle scene is so fake looking. So what this film is missing is spirit. There is no spirit. There is no zeal. The spirit of creativity is utterly absent from this film. And I'm not saying that Ridley Scott is a bad director. He's a very good director. He made Gladiator and Black Hawk Down. He knows what it takes to make a real movie, a good movie. But I think that he just didn't have the will to make a good movie. I think he just didn't give a damn. I think he just wanted to get a cash grab. So let's just throw let's just throw Denzel Washington in there. And Denzel Washington, he's the biggest guy in the whole movie. He's really the main character of the movie, if you think about it, because he's the only one who is a decent actor in the whole film. He's the only one there. But again, even with him, the whole thing just falls flat. And he's a master actor. He's a very good actor. One of the greatest actors ever. But the way that they did it, I mean, guys, I'm just going to spoil the story for you. So in Gladiator, you had Commodus. Commodus was a real emperor. Now, did Commodus murder his father, and did Commodus die in the Colosseum fighting a gladiator? None of that freaking happened. That's all fiction. Gladiator is a fiction that is within a real historical context. So there really was a Commodus. There really was a Marcus Aurelius. And Commodus actually really was a gladiator. If you read about Commodus, he was an actual gladiator. But the stuff in the film didn't happen. The story in the film did not happen. But at least in the film, they portrayed Commodus as a sicko, but he was a sicko who could use a sword. Whereas in Gladiator 2, you have these two twin brothers. And the twin brothers are supposed to be Carcalla and Gaeta. Now, if you read about the real Carcalla, okay, I'm going to show you guys something here. This is how Carcalla looked like. Now, he looks fierce. That's not how Carcalla is portrayed in Gladiator 2. Carcalla is portrayed as a wimpy-ass, thin dude with red hair. Now, Carcalla was an evil person. He murdered his own brother. But in the film, they don't even try to find an actor that looks like Carcalla. They just find some wimpy-ass dudes. You find them in a mall somewhere. I mean, they just don't... They look pathetic, and they don't fit the roles at all, and there's nothing interesting about them. At least with Commodus, there was something... He was a sicko, but he played his role in a way that got the audience's attention. So there's a scene in Gladiator where Lucius, his nephew, is doing swordplay with his uncle Commodus. Lucius says, I am Maximus, the savior of Rome. And Commodus says, little B hurt him so much. I mean, it's just such a well-done scene, and it really shows you that this Commodus guy, he's a murderer. I mean, this guy will kill you. And then he tries to rape his own sister in the movie. I mean, but they really show you the sickness and the degeneracy of the Roman Empire. Now, in Gladiator 2, they have this scene where this epic army is presented. And it is the best presentation of a Roman army in the entire movie. And it's really well done. So you see all these soldiers, and they're on horses, and they got the armor, and they just look really epic. They look super epic. And you think, okay, a battle scene is about to happen. Nope. All that happens is Denzel Washington comes along, and he starts acting like the dude from Training Day. And he's basically saying, King Kong ain't got nothing on me. And they have this fight scene, and Denzel Washington manages to get the guy in the water, and the guy is wearing Maximus's armor. And Denzel tries to stab him over and over again, but the sword keeps hitting his armor, and it's not piercing him. But the way they did this scene, it was so cheap. They put a camera under the water, and they have the armor there, and they just get a sword. They're just oh, this pen is on. No wonder it felt sharp. They're getting the sword, and they're just tap, tap, tap. And it just looks so fake. And Denzel's sitting there, and the scene would switch from Denzel just thrusting his sword into the water to the sword in the water hitting this armor, and it just looks so cheap. And I'm thinking, wait, this guy is a killer. You would think that he would, I don't know, move the sword up a little bit and hit the guy in the neck or something. No. He just hits the same spot over and over again. And it just looks so contrived and so cheap. They really tried to taint the aura of Maximus in this film. So it so happens that, and they really force this into the audience, it just so happens that Lucia, the sister of Commodus, I mean, she had an affair with Maximus. Now, in Gladiator, Lucia is the sister of Commodus. Now, in real life, Commodus did have a sister named Lucia. But in the film, Lucia is a single mom whose husband was an honorable, valorous man of Rome. In Gladiator 2, all of a sudden they say, Lucia's husband, the one that's mentioned in Gladiator as being this valorous and honorable man, well, he actually was a homosexual. They make this very clear in Gladiator 2. Yeah, he was actually gay. And Denzel Washington is talking about Lucia's husband, and he says, well, whatever happened to him? And then this senator guy, or whatever he is, this elite kind of aristocratic guy who's also homosexual, he says, well, it turns out that he liked men sometimes. And then Denzel says, well, I like them too sometimes. It's so dumb. This is so stupid. They really just shoved this into the audience's faces. Oh, and while she was married to him, Maximus actually inseminated Lucia. And Lucius, who's now an adult in this movie, he's actually Maximus's biological son. Oh, okay. So Lucia's husband, who was portrayed as a honorable man, he is now a homosexual who was being cucked by his wife, and his wife was banging Maximus, and Maximus inseminated her and got her pregnant with Lucius. And so Lucius is no longer the son of this guy. Lucius is actually the son of Maximus, and it's just so, guys, this film is retarded. This film is garbage. It is a piece of shit film. I do not recommend it to anybody. I will spoil the shit out of this movie. It is complete and utter trash. I will not recommend it at all. There is zero emotion, zero depth. It tries to impress the audience with some of these epic battle scenes, but even the battle scenes fall flat because they're so reliant on CGI. Whereas in Gladiator, you have this epic scene in the beginning, and the Germans are there, and you got the big German guy with Thor's hammer, and it's just this absolute epic scene that's gritty, and the color is so fitting, and it just immerses you. Whereas in Gladiator 2, you are constantly being reminded that you are watching a movie. And the actors don't even look comfortable in front of the camera. The Chilean guy that they hired for this film, I forgot his name, Javier, whatever the hell, Pedro Sanchez, whatever his name is, he doesn't even look comfortable in front of a camera. He doesn't look comfortable in front of the camera. And listen, I've been talking in front of cameras for a huge chunk of my life, and I can tell you, I can tell when someone is not comfortable in front of a camera, because I've been uncomfortable in front of a camera countless times. I know when someone is just moving through the motions and not feeling anything in front of the camera, and these guys just don't feel a damn thing. Even in the end of the movie, when Denzel Washington is killed, the guy who kills Denzel Washington, Lucius, who's now, he is the son that Lucia had out of wedlock with Maximus. He gets up and he does this speech, and the speech is supposed to be this climactic scene, and it ends up being utterly anticlimactic. And he gets up there and he goes, there was a dream that was Rome, and it was a dream of freedom and democracy. This guy, I don't feel anything. Whereas in Gladiator, you had Lucia who gets up there and she goes, he was a servant of Rome. Honor him. And then Quintus comes up. Who will help me carry him? And then Juba puts the little images in the sand. I will see you again, but not yet. And that scene when Juba says, I will see you again, that connects with a scene that was in the middle of the movie when Maximus and Juba are talking. And they're talking about the lives that they had before they became slaves. And Maximus says to Juba, my son, he is in the afterlife. He is waiting for me. My wife, that is none of your business. And Juba says, right now my daughter and my wife are fetching water from the pond, from the lake. They are fetching water as we speak. And then he says, I am afraid that I will have to wait for my wife and daughter to meet me. In other words, Juba is saying, I'm going to die here, and I'm going to have to wait for my wife and daughter to meet me in the afterlife. And then there's this German guy who's in the movie. He's this Germanian guy who's in the arena, and he goes up to Maximus, and he's just this valorous guy. He has no fear whatsoever. And everybody, I mean, people in the arena, people before they enter the arena are naturally terrified. And this German guy, he has no fear at all. The guy is a natural warrior. And he goes up to Maximus and he says, red is the god's color. You don't find that at all in Gladiator 2. Nothing. Not even, there's not one scene in Gladiator 2 that impacts you psychologically at all. And then in Gladiator, just Gladiator, in Gladiator, the masterpiece, Juba is talking to Maximus and he says, you have a great name. You have a great name. People will try to kill you because you have a great name. I mean, it's just so well done. That epicness, that depthness that you find in Gladiator is completely absent in Gladiator 2. And the actors are just going with the flow, going with the motions, saying their lines, and there's nothing there. Nothing. Gladiator 2 is just a dead, rotting corpse of a film, and it's an exhausting movie to watch because there's no connection. You have no sense of investing your emotions in the film at all. One thing that I almost forgot to mention is that it doesn't really matter that the film is modern. You can have a film that's really old and it's still super immersive and it's still a masterpiece. Gladiator came out in 2001 or 2000, one of those years, and it's still a masterpiece. Braveheart came out in 1995 and it's still a masterpiece. Guys, go watch the film Barabbas, which came out in 1961. Barabbas is also a movie about a man who is forced to be a gladiator. He is taken by the Romans. He is forced into slavery. He is then forced to be a gladiator, and he is forced to fight in the arena. He is made to fight in the arena. And even though that film came out in 1961, the acting and the artistic depth and expression in that film is so good that it still immerses you into the story. Even though the film is outdated, even though it's an old movie, even though it uses outdated means of production, it is still an extremely immersive film, and the acting in it is absolutely epic and masterful. And even the Colosseum scenes, even the gladiatorial scenes in Barabbas, even though they were made in 1961, they're so well done, especially for its time, that it still immerses you. And there are scenes where people are being butchered in the arena and the people are clapping their hands. And to this day, when I watch that movie, I feel a sense of horror watching these people cheering people being murdered and butchered for entertainment. And it still hits me in the gut. And the film is so well done, and the acting, especially by Anthony Quinn, is so well done that the film is very immersive, even though it was made in 1961. So it doesn't matter. You'll say, well, movies are made better because we have more advanced methods of film production. That could be true. But without the spirit and the artistic depth, a film, regardless of how advanced it is in cinematic production, will still feel exhausting to watch, and it just won't work. You have to have familiarity between the audience and the characters. You have to have emotional expression and emotional depth. You have to have creative spirit. And without those things, the film is a rotting corpse. Gladiator 2 is just a dead, rotting corpse of a film, and it's an exhausting movie to watch because there's no connection. You have no sense of investing your emotions in the film at all. And I honestly just couldn't wait for the movie to end. The film is 2 hours long. I could not wait for the film to end. I was just, when is this movie going to end? So I can go, I don't know, watch a video or something. Like, when is this movie going to end? It's an exhausting film because it's aimless. It's just all over the place. It goes from one scene to the other. One scene you're here, and there a scene you're there. There's no sense of continuity. It's confusing. You just kind of forget what are these people doing, what's going on, and it's a film that feels dragged out. It's just dragging the audience along, and it expects you to like the film because it's connected to Gladiator, and that's just not how things work. A film that has zero creative spirit is an exhausting film to watch, and it's going to constantly remind you that you are watching a movie as opposed to actually being immersed into a story. So that's my review of Gladiator 2. I think the film sucks. I will not recommend it to anyone. And that's that. Don't waste your money. The film is torment. It sucks. I gave the film this is a rotting corpse that drags out and exhausts the audience out of 10.